Brittany Crocker, and today I'm here to talk to you about this women's sports in France. And when I first started researching to get ready for this project, I realized one woman was really left out of the history, and her name is Alice Millett. Now, she was a pioneer for female athletes in France. Her tireless advocacy for the inclusion of women in competition sports and the efforts to promote female athletes. And in 1917, she actually founded the FSFI, an organization dedicated to promoting women's sports worldwide. And this organization aimed to create competitive opportunities for female athletes and provided a platform for organizing international competitions. She was instrumental in organizing the women's first Olympiad in 1922. And what's so ironic about that is a little over 100 years later, this past summer Olympics was held in Paris, and there was the same number of female athletes as there was male athletes. And in the early beginnings in the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution led to changes in socialite roles and increased leisure time for females, which gave them the more opportunity to try to do some sports. Now, the introduction of physical education was introduced, and schools began offering this to females to promote health and fitness. The formation of the women's first clubs was produced in the 1800s, and clubs focused on activities like gymnastics, fencing, that provided a structured environment for women to engage in sports. And of course, there was challenges where socialite attitudes often viewed sports as inappropriate for women, emphasizing modesty and femininity. And despite challenges, early female athletes began to break barriers, advocating for more opportunities. Now, the 19th century marked a turning point for women in sports, setting the stage for future generations and developments. Now, during the 1920s to the 1930s, many women taking new responsibilities during the war, which began to shift socialite perceptions of women's capabilities. Now, the 1920s saw a rise in women's participation in sports, influenced by the broader women's rights movement. Popular sports at this time included tennis, swimming, and basketball. And women's sports began media attention with increased coverage in newspaper and in magazines. And also in 1926, women were the first women's swimming competition team was held in France, and this marked an increase in recognition of female athletes in competitive sports. And in 1936, women were allowed to compete in track and field events at the Olympics, with limited participation, of course. Now, a key event or milestone in this era was in the 1924 Winter Olympics. They had introduced women's skiing and skating. And during the 1936 Olympics that was held in Berlin, they saw inclusion in track and field and expanded the range of sports available for women competitors. Now, of course, there were challenges. The women athletes at this time faced barriers, including limited access to facilities, in practice facilities, funding, and socialite attitudes, because they still favored men at this time participating in sports instead of women. Notable athletes began to emerge that would inspire future generations. just like tennis champion Suzanne Ligon, who gained fame and helped popularize women's sports. Now, this era marked a transformation for women's sports in France that was characterized by increased participation, evolving social attitudes, and the emergence of female role models. Now, the post-war recovery and growth in the 1960s that was marked by significant social and economic change in France. Now, more women began to participate in organized sports with increased participation within gymnastics, swimming, and some team sports. The number of women competing in local and nationalized championships grew, leading to the formation of women's sports clubs and associations. Now, a lot of this was because of the 1960s feminist movement that included the fight for gender equality, positive influence on women's sports. The rise of female athletes began to challenge traditional gender norms, promoting the idea that women could compete at high levels. And during this time, there were some key athletes. One would be Danielle Pizento, who was a swimmer that represented France in international competition and was an inspiration for future athletes. Another one was Natalie Prévert, who was a prominent figure and that was dedicated to sports. A notable event would be the 1964 Tokyo Olympics. Now, again, there were limited female participation, but there was more women participating at this time than there had been before. Now, of course, there were still challenges. Despite the progress, they faced gender discrimination, lack of media coverage, and unequal funding compared to the male athletes. And many sports still had limited opportunities for women and social athletes. Now, there were some landmark achievements of female athletes in France at this time, from the 1980s to the 2000s. And what they began to see growing media attention, contributing to the increased visibility for female athletes. The government and sports organizations began to implement policies aimed at promoting gender equality in sports. In 1985, the French National Assembly enacted laws to promote gender equality in sports, which this helped many women go forward and achieve great things. And some major milestones within this time is the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, where women represented a significant portion of the French Olympic team. In the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, the French women's basketball team won a bronze medal. And in the 1996 Olympics, Marie-Josée Pérec won 2 gold medals in the 400 meter and the 200 meter, and you can see her right here as doing the track and field. And then the other lady you see here is Amelia Mauresmo, who is a professional tennis player who won 2 Grand Slams at the Australian Open and Wimbledon. And she played a crucial role in popularizing tennis among younger female athletes. Now, the success of female athletes in international competitions helped to challenge stereotypes and promote gender equality in sports. And female athletes became role models for younger girls, inspiring greater participation. And then when you get to the modern era, which is the 2010s to the present, women's sports have received greater media attention, leading to increased visibility for female athletes and their accomplishments. Major broadcasting networks and online platforms have begun to prioritize women's sports, making events more accessible to the public. And there have been major achievements, of course. In the 2012 London Olympics, the French women's handball team won a gold medal. In the 2016 Rio Olympics, the female athletes represented France with distinction, including 2 gold medalists, Adélie Courvères and the Rigsby's team. And of course, the 2019 Women's World Cup that was hosted by France. And this got had a record attendance and viewership, significantly raising the profile of women's soccer in the country. And as you see here, there's Katrina Johnson-Thompson and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. And Miss Thompson was on the rugby team and won the 2019 World Championship. And Prévot was a mountain bike racer who won multiple world championship titles and became a prominent figure in cycling. Now, the success of these female athletes helped to challenge gender stereotypes and young girls to participate in sports. Campaigns began promoting gender equality in sports. But now, despite the progress, female athletes still faced disparities with funding, sponsorships, media coverage, and they also had to face sexism, discrimination, and the fight for equal pay compared to their counterparts. Now, the modern era has shown great strides for women's sports and equality. But now the future of sports in France is going to be based on investment and support. There needs to be growth in the funding and sponsorship opportunities for women's sports for both the public and private sector. And there needs to be a continued commitment for national sports federations to enhance resources for female athletes and their programs. And there needs to be an increased female participation in sports from a younger age through school programs and the community. Just like you see here, this lady taking the time to invest in these young girls. And it's not just about teaching them a sport or how to play. It's about showing them encouragement, being the leader they need. Not only showing the bad stuff that they do, but telling them the great stuff that they do and encouraging them to break barriers and to not let anyone stand in their way of doing the things that they would like to do. Now, of course, utilization in technology and training performance analysis is going to help grow sports. The expansion of movements and initiatives focused on promoting gender equality in sports include equal pay and opportunities, which is also their bonuses that they get for winning. There also needs to be opportunity for collaboration with international organizations to promote women's sports globally. Now, the importance of female athletes as role models for younger generations to inspire participation and ambition in sports. Now, women's sports in France have evolved, of course, as we have talked about in the other slides of this presentation. But the battle for equality in women's sports in France has been multifaceted, and it struggled with reflects broader societal changes. Female athletes often earn less than their counterparts, and that's one thing that they're fighting for and hoping for in the future. Now, greater investment and supports at all levels. Fostering partnerships and collaboration will also help grow. And as Billie Jean King said, champions keep playing until they get better, till they get it right. And that is true, because we all need to strive to be better than the day we were before, and to get it right and play our best. And I just thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I get nervous doing this, so I don't always present well, but I do thank you and hope you have a great day.